So, you think you've got life all figured out and you're basically a walking saint? Well, hate to break it to you, but not so fast, champ. In this video, we're diving into some brain-bending thought experiments that'll have you questioning if you're as good as you think, or if you're just really good at thinking you're good. Don't worry though, it's not all doom and gloom. We'll have some laughs, learn a thing or two, and by the end, you might just see the world and yourself a little differently. Ready to have your mind blown? Let's do this. Alright, imagine you're playing the ultimate game of Sims, except this time, you don't get to choose your character. That's right, you're about to design a whole society, but here's the twist. You have no clue who you'll be when the game starts. Billionaire? Maybe. Middle manager? Possibly. Guy who only eats instant noodles? Also on the table. This wild idea is what John Rawls called the veil of ignorance, and it's like trying to bake a cake without knowing if you're going to be the one eating it or cleaning up the mess afterward. So why does this even matter? Well, when you've got no clue what role you'll play in this grand society, you suddenly become a whole lot more interested in making things fair. Turns out, it's hard to be selfish when you might end up on the short end of the stick. It's like the ultimate Stoic philosophy lesson, but instead of controlling what you can control, you're now sweating over what you can't. It's a real-life level up in self-improvement. Now, let's be honest, would you ever willingly sign up for this? Probably not, because who wants to risk being the guy who has to clean the public toilets of this hypothetical society? But here's the deal. This isn't just some philosophical brain teaser. It's a super practical way to think about fairness in your everyday life. Like, next time you're in line for coffee, maybe ask yourself, what if I were the barista? Boom. Personal growth, right there in the cafe. And just when you think you've got this fairness thing nailed down, life decides to hit you with moral luck. Spoiler alert, even when you try your best, sometimes things go sideways. And trust me, it's gonna mess with your head. Stick around, it's about to get weird, but in a good way. Alright, so you've designed this super fair society, but guess what? Reality is like, hold my coffee. Because here's the thing, even when you try to be fair, your own biases sneak in like uninvited party guests. Welcome to the fairness dilemma, where no matter how hard you try, someone's gonna feel like they got the short end of the stick. It's like playing Monopoly with your family. No one ever leaves happy, and there's always a fight brewing over who gets to be the top hat. Rawls' theory shines a big ol' spotlight on how fairness is way trickier than it seems. You think you're being fair, but the truth is, most of us make decisions based on what works best for us, not necessarily for everyone. It's like giving yourself the biggest slice of cake, telling yourself you deserve it, and then realizing everyone else got a sliver. Oops. Self-improvement, am I right? And look, you're not a bad person. It's just that being truly fair is like juggling flaming swords while riding a unicycle. It's possible, but it's also really easy to mess up. This is where your journey into personal development takes a detour into self-knowledge territory. Knowing that you're wired to look out for numero uno is the first step toward focusing on actual growth, not just playing defense with your ego. But don't worry, it gets even messier, because life's about to throw another curveball. Ever heard of moral luck? Yeah, turns out, even when you think you've made the right choice, the universe might just decide to hit you with a plot twist. And suddenly, being fair seems like child's play compared to what's coming next. You ever do something kinda dumb and somehow it just works out? Like you trip, but instead of face planting, you land in a perfect cool pose like you meant to do it? Congrats, you've just experienced moral luck. It's basically when life throws you a bone, or occasionally a wrench, and you get judged based on what happens next, whether it was your fault or not. Philosophers Bernard Williams and Thomas Nagel thought this was pretty wild, and they weren't wrong. Imagine this, two people get into the exact same bar fight. One person walks away, and the other accidentally causes someone to need stitches. The action's the same, but suddenly one guy's getting slapped with a lawsuit, while the other's just nursing a black eye. Moral luck is like that sneaky plot twist you didn't see coming. It's all about how sometimes we're judged by consequences that are totally beyond our control. Life's way of saying, surprise? You thought you were in charge? Think again. So how does this fit into your quest for personal growth? Well, knowing that luck plays a role in how your actions are judged can either be super freeing or just make you want to throw your hands up and say, "What's the point?" But here's the kicker. Understanding moral luck doesn't mean you stop trying to be a better person. It means you roll with the punches and keep working on your personal development. Because hey, you can't control everything, but you can control how you respond to it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Great, so even when I try to do the right thing, I could still get unlucky. Yep, welcome to life. But this brings us to an even deeper question. How do we balance intentions versus consequences? Time to take a deep breath, because things are about to get even more philosophical. Alright, here's where things get real spicy. Imagine two people doing the exact same thing. Say, throwing a punch in a bar fight. You know, classic Thursday night stuff. One guy's punch doesn't land, and he just looks like an idiot flailing his arms. The other guy? Well, his punch accidentally sends someone to the hospital. Same intention, wildly different consequences. Now, who's in trouble? The guy who just wanted to throw a harmless punch but got unlucky? Or the guy who failed at throwing a punch but still walked away scot-free? It's a conundrum, my friend. Philosophers love to argue over whether intentions or consequences matter more. Should we only be judged for what we meant to do, or do we have to own the result, even if it's a total accident? If this doesn't make you question every minor decision you've ever made, I don't know what will. It's basically life saying, "Good luck figuring this one out, pal." Welcome to the world of philosophy, where clear answers are about as rare as a good Wi-Fi signal at a coffee shop. But here's the deal. This isn't just about bar fights, although, let's be honest, those examples are fun. It's about how we navigate life every day. When we talk about self-improvement, discipline, and all that personal development jazz, it's easy to say, "Well, I meant well." But what if your actions don't turn out the way you planned? Suddenly, your good intentions might not be enough to save you from the consequences. And that's where a little self-knowledge and a whole lot of humility come in handy. So what do we do with this? Do we just stop trying to do the right thing because, hey, moral luck might ruin it anyway? Nah, that's not the move. It's all about owning both your intentions and the results, even when the universe decides to mess with you. And speaking of messing with your head, let's dive into some more philosophical brain teasers that'll really make you question what you think you know about right and wrong. Alright, buckle up, because things are about to get as brain-twisting as trying to fold a fitted sheet. Philosophy has a knack for turning simple questions into the kind of puzzles that make you question your entire existence. And in this case, we've got three heavy hitters: fairness, moral luck, and moral knowledge. It's like the trifecta of, wait, am I even doing life right? First off, we've got fairness, which, as we've already seen, is a bit of a mess. You want to be fair, but no matter how hard you try, someone's going to feel like they got the short end of the stick. Then there's moral luck, where you're basically at the mercy of life's randomness, like getting caught in the rain 5 minutes after saying, "I don't need an umbrella." And lastly, there's moral knowledge. This one's the kicker. How do you know what's right when every situation feels like it comes with its own special set of rules? Spoiler alert, philosophers have been arguing about this for centuries, and we're still confused. Now, before you start spiraling into a mini existential crisis, here's the good news. The fact that these problems are so tricky is what makes them fun. Yeah, I said it. It's like leveling up your brain every time you dive into these debates. Plus, personal growth isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions. And these philosophical problems? They're the kind of questions that make you a smarter, more self-aware person. Which, by the way, is totally a flex. And just when you think you're getting a handle on all these dilemmas, we've got one more problem that'll really bake your noodle. The is-ought problem. Trust me, this one's a doozy. Ready to question everything? Let's go. Alright, ever heard someone say, "Well, that's just the way things are"? Congrats, you've stumbled into the is-ought problem without even knowing it. This little gem, courtesy of David Hume, asks one of life's greatest questions. Just because something is a certain way, does that mean it ought to be that way? It's like saying, "I've always had 3 scoops of ice cream for dessert, so I should definitely keep doing that." But should you? Spoiler, your waistline might disagree. The problem is, we tend to look at how the world works and then assume that's how it should work. But life's a bit more complicated than, it's always been like this. This philosophical nugget challenges you to think beyond the status quo. Just because you've always done things one way, whether it's how you manage stress, handle relationships, or even pursue personal success, doesn't mean it's the best way. Maybe your habits ought to change, even if it's uncomfortable. Now, before you go down a rabbit hole of questioning every life decision, let's keep this grounded. Think of it like digital detox or dopamine fasting. Just because everyone's glued to their phones doesn't mean you should be, right? It's all about questioning whether the way things are is actually working for you. Essentialism, personal growth, self-knowledge, these all tie into figuring out what really ought to be part of your life. But don't get too comfortable just yet. You think you've got this figured out? Well, the next big question is, how do we fix this? Enter compassion, a potential solution to help navigate these mind-boggling problems. Trust me, it's going to make more sense in a second. Alright, after all that heavy philosophical lifting, you're probably thinking, okay, great. Now what? How do I actually use any of this without my brain exploding? Enter compassion, the philosophical life hack you didn't know you needed. Seriously, it's like the duct tape of personal development. Got a problem? Compassion can probably patch it up. Feeling stuck in a moral dilemma? Compassion. Accidentally ate your roommate's leftovers? Compassion. Okay, maybe not that last one, but you get the point. Here's the deal. When life throws you tricky questions about fairness, moral luck, and all that jazz, compassion helps you chill out and see things from someone else's perspective. It's like playing a video game, but instead of focusing on leveling yourself up, you start helping the other players. And surprise, surprise, that actually helps you grow too. Think about it. If you're constantly thinking about how your actions impact others, you start to make better choices. It's like personal growth with a side of empathy. But hey, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you need to become a walking hug machine. Unless that's your vibe, then, by all means, hug it out. Compassion doesn't mean letting people walk all over you or pretending everything's okay. It's about understanding the world's a messy place and doing your best to navigate it without being a jerk. It's like the ultimate proactivity tool for personal success, taking a breath, zooming out, and asking, how can I not make this worse for everyone involved? And guess what? When you mix compassion with everything we've talked about, fairness, moral luck, and the eyes-ought problem, you get a pretty solid roadmap for being a better person. It's like adding a cheat code to your personal development journey. But don't just take my word for it. Try it out in real life and see how quickly it transforms your relationships, mental well-being, and even your existential crises. You're welcome.